And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we're talking about day one of free agency for the Washington Commanders. And we're talking about their most recent signing of Javon Kinlaw. We'll be talking about the impact that that is going to have on the defense. And also, we'll be looking at a huge trade that the Washington Commanders were able to pull off here in day one of free agency as they get a five-time Pro Bowler at the offensive tackle here in Laremy Tusil. And so we'll be talking about that along with some other free agency moves that are certainly going to impact the Washington Commanders and how they shape out this roster moving forward for next season. And so let's start with the signing of Javon Kinlaw. And so, look, it looks like that reports are showing that Javon Kinlaw is getting a 3-year deal up to 45 million, 30 million guaranteed. And I think that initially that this deal is like very much an upside type of deal. I think that Adam Peters went out, signed Javon Kinlaw, and I think he's thinking of the upside because you look and you see he started off with San Francisco. Adam Peters was the assistant GM there, so he certainly knows what Kinlaw can do. And you look at the year that he had with the Jets. I mean, it wasn't anything that was spectacular, but you do see that there is some real upside here because look, in this year that he had with the Jets, he had a career high as far as solo tackles are concerned and tackles in general. But you see the 27 solo tackles. He also had 4.5 sacks and he had 2 forced fumbles. And so there is some upside here. And I think that that really is what Adam Peters is banking on. And I think that when Adam Peters goes out and signs a guy like this, I think that he is just really telling you that he has the it factor that the Washington Commanders perhaps are looking for. They always talk about really building a winning foundation and just having that winning culture. And so he's definitely a player that I think that, maybe fits with what the Washington Commanders are wanting to do. And I like the fact that, look, when you see the 4.5 sacks, that is great. I always talk about being able to generate pressure without having to call blitzes. And I've talked about this that, look, this is how the Super Bowl was won for the Eagles. They were able to get sacks. And so that is a plus. It's just, can he stop the run? Because that is what the Washington Commanders absolutely need up front. They need a player that can stop the run. And so he is young enough at this point in time. I think that, here's a player that he's young. He has some upside here because he's only 27, 6'5", 319. The question is now, will he reach that upside? Because I think when you look back and you look at just some of the things he's gone through as far as the injuries are concerned, in 2021, 2022, he dealt with ACL injuries. And so that is why you see that he did not play that many games in 2021 and 2022. It was due to an ACL injury. And so, look, he could be just rounding into form. And so if you get him, it's going to turn into a good value. And so hopefully, this does pay off. I do see, again, the upside that is there. And look, if Adam Peters believes in him, then I think that perhaps we should definitely believe in him as well. But we'll see what happens when he gets, on the field. And so hopefully it works out. And so next up, the Washington Commanders made some more noise here in day one of free agency, really shaking it up where they just made a huge trade. And I think maybe the trade of the offseason right now, because the Washington Commanders go out and they get a 5-time Pro Bowler and offensive tackle here, Laremy Tusil. And so this is huge for the Washington Commanders because, we were talking about them possibly going out and drafting an offensive lineman. I mean, they could still do this, but you're getting an established player in this league already. He's already protected CJ Stroud. I know it was a tough year for the Texans, but, from what I'm seeing, it definitely wasn't, necessarily his fault. I think he still played at a very high level. And look, I mean, the Washington Commanders, they gave up some draft capital to get him. Looks like that 4 picks in total went over to the Houston Texans here. Looks like that the Washington Commanders sent a third a seventh in 2025. So both the third and the seventh rounder here in 2025. And then also, too, they sent over a second and a fourth rounder in 2026 to the Texans in exchange here for Tunsil. And then also, too, the Washington Commanders got a fourth round pick in 2025. And so, look, I mean, you still have some draft capital to go out and still improve this football team, which is what Adam Peters talked about. But you get a player right now that helps you maximize that window. Look, he's excellent in pass blocking. I was looking at the ESPN article by John Keim, and it says at the bottom here that, look, he is 10th amongst offensive tackles in pass block win rate. And this was according to True Media. And so that was on ESPN.com at the bottom of that article. So that just lets you know how good of a pass blocker he is. I can imagine he's going to help the run game, which was really a strength for the Washington Commanders. Being able to move the chains and then make it to where we have some short conversions on those third and fourth down attempts. And so he's going to help us there. And I think that, look, this is a great move for the Washington Commanders because, look, you don't know if you're going to get an offensive lineman that is ever going to get to this type of level. You get a chance to maximize this window with Jaden Daniels. Look, he has 2 more years left on his deal, so he's under contract there. And so I think that this is a great move for the Washington Commanders to go out and get this established player to help protect Jaden Daniels. That's going to give him some more time in that passing game. And I can only imagine what Jaden Daniels is going to do with that. And so next up, let's go ahead and look at just some moves that took place here in free agency, some things that are definitely, going to impact the Washington Commanders and what they do moving forward. And so let's start with the news that we hear that, look, Jeremy Chinn is going to be headed to the Las Vegas Raiders. It looks like that is going to be a 2-year deal. And I must say, I think that, look, that's a little bit of a shocker because I thought that they would maybe bring him back, especially since he had a very good year. I think it was a prove-it year. And I thought that, look, I thought he was a player certainly you wanted to bring back with his physicality and the way that he was able to come up in that position. And so now, we're going to have to try to figure something out either via the draft or free agency here to replace him. But Jeremy Chinn is not going to be back with the Washington Commanders. And so next up, another player that, is set to be moving on as well is going to be Dyami Brown. So it looks like that, Dyami Brown is headed to the Jaguars. And I think it's going to be a good fit. I think it's a 1-year, $10 million deal. And I think that, they're trying to figure some things out. Obviously, it wasn't, a good showing for them. They do have, a very good quarterback over there. And so hopefully he's able to figure it out. I definitely think the Washington Commanders still need to upgrade the wide receiver position, even with getting Deebo Samuel. And so we'll see what happens with the Washington Commanders, whether they do it in the draft or whether they do it still via trade. I think that that's still on the table. And there's also going to be some free agents out there that I think can still be had. And so we'll see what happens with the Washington Commanders and where they go from there. Just some more news. Look, some possible targets that we talked about on this show. We talked about Josh Sweat maybe being a player that would come to the Washington Commanders. And it looks like that he's heading to the Arizona Cardinals. Chris Godwin, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's headed back to the Buccaneers. Hassan Reddick, which is a player that I talked about as well just in yesterday's show. It looks like that he's also heading to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. DK Metcalf, we already talked about it, expected to be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I guess, when that trade becomes official. And so he's off the board. And so, these are some players that maybe the Washington Commanders could have went after. And so they're no longer available. And lastly, one more signing that we had before we get out of here is that, Tress Way is going to be back with the Washington Commanders. And so, look, I think that this is a very good sign for the Washington Commanders. Look, I think that Tress Way is almost, he's a part of the defense with the way that he's able to just help flip the field. That is something that you want, with your punter and winning the field battle as far as the position is concerned and flipping the field. And so I like that they bring back Tress Way. I think he's certainly going to help us out. And, I think it was a great signing there. And so anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking here around this most recent news with the Washington Commanders. Do you like the signing here with Javon Kinlaw? And also, too, what do you think here about this trade with Tunsil? Do you think that, that was a good trade? And so also, too, with Tress Way and then the free agency updates as well, with De'Ami Brown and Jeremy Chin leaving, let me know what you're thinking in the comments there. And as usual, as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you on the next one. All right. Peace.